That'll do the thing.
It won't make me go live right now.
It will.
Okay.
That's the thing that it will do.
Then I just pressed it. Hold on. Well, we're here now. Hi,
We're
everyone.
doing great.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. I hope everyone can hear me, see me. Everything is good. Yeah, we're live. Welcome, everyone, authors and audience. Welcome to the 2024 Fall Release Showcase. I'm your host. I'm Lorenzo Carrera. I'm an administrator here at Renaissance. I use he, him pronouns. We're so lucky to be joined here today by Stephen Graham King, author of The Infinite Heist, C.L. Carey, author of Spaced, as well as Heather Chambers, author of You Would Have Done It Too. We're going to kick things off with a brief introduction from our authors. Then we'll give the authors the chance to answer some questions. And we were gonna close out the event with a game of Guess the Quote. And I invite Heather Chambers to start off the introductions.
Hi, this is not at all nerve-wracking. My name is Heather Chambers, and I am 25 and have been writing for as long as I can remember. Since I'm an Army brat, we've moved every 3 years, so the only consistent friends I had were characters and my own stories and books, and that didn't just get extremely sad. And so that sort of developed into an obsession with writing and morally great characters and thrillers and high stakes chases. And now here I am at 25 with like 3 books out. So yay. And I plan to write many more.
Carey, if you want to go.
Hi, my name's Christina. I'm 51. This is my first published novel, but I have published a couple of novellas as well too. Before that, self-publishing. I like writing about new worlds and interesting people, and character building is like my biggest thing. And I don't really know what else to say.
That's funny. Thank you, Christina. Stephen?
Hi, everyone. I am Stephen Graham King, not that other guy. I go by he, him, or they, them. I fell in love with science fiction when I was 3 years old, sitting on the living room floor watching the original Star Trek with my sisters, and fell in love with queer storytelling in the 80s when independent queer cinema took off, and have been writing that synthesis ever since. The Infinite Heist is the 5th book in my Maverick Heart series. It is my 6th novel, 7th if you count the one that we do not speak of, the very first one. And this is, like I said, this big, queer, loud, explodey heist adventures with a bunch of crazy characters that are always getting into trouble.
I love that. That sounds great. Okay, thank you all for introducing yourselves. We can now move on to questions about all these books. My first question for all the authors is, what were the high and low points of writing this novel? We can start with Heather.
Well, for me, the best part was getting to use my wildly specific, concerning knowledge of serial killers. The low was realizing that I needed to rearrange the plot during editing. I upheaved the entire thing, like chapters, dialogue, absolutely everything. My mom actually has pictures of me hunched over the floor in my office, like on all fours, surrounded by printed scenes and physically shifting them around. I'm really glad I did that, though. I looked insane.
Really got into the mind of the characters that you were writing about, it sounds
very
like.
much so. My dog was not allowed in the room. She would have shuffled everything.
Classic dog ate my homework scenario there.
Very much. You ate my dialogue.
Yeah, exactly. Christina, what about you? What were the high and low points of writing this novel?
The high points were writing the story and realizing that I had actually an interesting story to tell. The low points was when I had given it to someone who edited it and they destroyed it. And then I had to have Kat Gordon bring it back to life in substantive edits and go like, where did your voice go? And I'm like,
Oh.
So
that
so
sounds
that
very
was
tough.
it was. And then another high point though was seeing my story come back to life with her editing and seeing like, oh, there's my story, there's my voice. So that was so it was like a roller coaster, to be honest. And now
For
we're
sure.
up on the high again.
I mean, like any good, it sounds like the story of writing this was a good story in and of itself, which
Yes.
is also good. Stephen, what about you? What are the high and low points of writing this novel?
Well, this was my pandemic book. So
Oh,
I had about 20,000 words when the pandemic hit. And so there was months of nothing. And then there would be sudden sort of spurt of progress. And I went from 20 to 45. And then it stopped again. And there would be months of nothing. And so there was on and off, and you'd try like new methods to get myself working. I mean, sitting in your apartment, you're not doing anything. People were making sourdough bread. I was sort of like staring off into the corner, not knowing what to do.
when you weren't writing, you were just watching it rise. Then your book.
Yeah, but yeah. So the high point I think was towards the end of the process. I actually switched from Word to Scrivener, which let me see the structure of the book much more clearly. And so I could identify the B plot and those sections that went into it and see where they were and why they weren't working. And so I was able to move them all around and finally get the flow, which kind of unlocked everything else. And then towards the end, it flew and it finally all sort of fell into place, what I needed it to be and where I needed it to go, which was such a relief after the stops and starts for months on end.
For sure. I guess the stops and starts were not your ideal way of working, like you would have preferred.
No,
okay.
No, I know. I mean, I'm not the most disciplined writer to begin with. I need a little bit of external structure, either a place or a routine that will keep me focused. And when the pandemic hit, I kind of lost that because I was going to the office. I would go from the office to a cafe. I would sit in the cafe and write for an hour and a half and go home. And that was a regular thing. And without that, I couldn't figure out how to get that rhythm back again.
Right.
So it took a while to find new ways of doing that in this sort of new reality of
the
working from home.
times.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you all so much. My next question is for Heather, who kind of alluded to this earlier, but the question is, what do you do to get inside the head of a murderer, and how do you inform yourself about complex character psychology? Other than, of course, being hunched on your floor on all fours, surrounded by your papers.
I'm not gonna lie, my first thought by hearing that question was my answer is going to get me arrested.
I don't think this is admissible as evidence in any
yes, I completely deny everything. My lawyer can, who is non-existent.
Yeah, exactly.
So I have always loved slasher films, especially those with twists like Scream and Psycho, absolute classics, and I will hear nothing of it. Even true crime documentaries, I've always wanted to get into that killer's head, find out why they did the things that they did, what made them be able to do such horrific things. Like, it was my burning question. Why? Because everybody is capable of murder, but most of us have that little stop switch, which is very helpful in the eyes of the law. So like, why don't others have that stop switch? So I started gulping down research upon research, learning about the difference between sociopaths, psychopaths, the sliding scale of personality disorders, how two people could have almost the exact, like, identical situations, but react differently, depending on the chemical imbalance in the brain or nature versus nurture. Those were a lot of terms. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. I mean, it's complex, right? That's the point.
Exactly.
It could be any infinite number of things.
Yeah. So then came the research into how they got caught, their minor or major mistakes, and by learning both sides, I could slide into the killer's brain the same way you'd slide into the hero's brain. It just it's a little more morbid.
No, of course. I think that that makes sense as a process, and from what I've heard as well, like it does seem like these kinds of projects require that kind of insane amount of like, yeah, hearing all these cases and interviews and like, yeah. So that sounds amazing. My next question is for both King and Carey, or Stephen and Christina, sorry. How do you approach world building in the context of science fiction and outer space? And what are the challenges and limitations about writing pure fiction about the infinite and unknown cosmos?
Let's go
Any one of you
first.
can go first. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I will. First off, I find that any books I enjoy that are space opera is all about building the characters and the relationships. In space opera, which is what I've written, as opposed to straight sci-fi, it's less about the science and more about the fiction and the relationships. I think we all have an idea of what colonies and large space vessels will look like. And as far as science goes, you can use your imagination to dream up quite a few things in your world while staying in the boundaries of what is true, such as Mars has very little atmosphere and a lot of radiation. So you aren't going to have people walking around outside and need to create a very closed environment. Same with on the ships. But inside those places, your imagination is really the only limitation.
Mm. It's sorry. It's interesting to yeah, kind of think about the paradox of needing to ground your stories right in this like this very finite method of like writing a character like one person, but then yeah, when your story is about the great expanse of space, you still have to kind of start from that little itty bitty building block of one character and in their mind, or else yeah, or else your story isn't grounded, I guess, right? But yes. Stephen, do you have anything?
My novels are sort of far future, way away from Earth.
Mm,
So that to me is the most fun, is that this is all my playground. I get to make it exactly the way I want it to. And so I get to decide who the characters are, how they interact, what they use, what their day-to-day life is like, what the planets are like. And I think you sort of start at a very sort of ground level thing. Okay, what do I need? What does my story need? So things like in the very first book, people need to go from one planet to another. So you need to be able to get them there. And you need to be able to get them there reasonably quickly. So something like, oh, well, we went into suspended animation for the next 100 years and then we arrive is not going to work. So you need
mm,
something faster than light. So you start building these things of, okay, what do I need? Okay, for this part of the story, I need X. Okay, how does that work? And looking into all those little details of how people get around, how do people communicate? What's the government like? What's the economy like? All those little pieces. And it's quite exciting to have to do that. And I always sort of look at that as oh, fun. What's
mm,
this new corner of the sandbox? What does this place look like? What does it do? Why are things happening this way? What gets them there? How do all of those pieces work? And the fun part, I think, is looking at things and going, okay, what things are part of our lives now? And how do we turn that on its side a little?
mhm.
And how do we make that a little bit different? And what could we have based on the way we do things now? So
Hmm.
that's what I find that the most exciting thing. And I mean, it is limiting in that you have to do everything. Like you can't just
Yeah.
assume any single piece of how people live their daily lives. You have to look at it and go, okay, does this make sense? Is this logical? Is this a thing that would carry through to a
Mhm.
far future? Or is this something that would change radically? between now and then. So it's always kind of the most exciting part for me is that going through. And I have been known to literally at the very like write an entire book and at the last minute go, ooh, wait a minute. I can change this little thing that would just make it just that little bit richer because it's that little bit different. You know, that there's that little bit of a new
Bit of
kind of thing,
spice.
or just a little bit of a level that maybe we didn't have before. I think the we're talking the sentient, there's a sentient spaceship in my books, and wrote the entire first book and the entire second book before the first book was even published, and had, and it was literally in the last rewrite where I thought, wait a minute, artificial intelligence won't have gender.
Mhm.
It was like, oh, pronouns. Need some new pronouns. So there's like those little things that at the very last minute you go, ooh, no, that's kind of an ordinary way of doing it. What if we do it this way? So there's that kind of
Yeah.
little
Those
turn
little
it on its
switches.
side a little bit.
I
Mhm.
actually mentioned in space that I has no gender, artificial intelligence, so they go by they.
That's lovely. I love that as something I'm seeing a lot in science fiction these days, especially. It's always so great. And it's interesting that you like. I think some might find it really daunting, I guess, to have to think of how everything works from the ground up. When you're so far in the future, right, you can take nothing for granted, as you're saying. So that kind of lack of limitation becomes its own, yeah, its own stressor, its own limitation in a way. But that's still, there's always the kind of the tension between creativity and limitation and how you need one and the other to foster both. So it's interesting how those come up even when you try to even when you would think you have avoided them, you still run into either limits, which then foster creativity, and then vice versa forever. Um, okay, wonderful. Thank you all so much. I'm going to be moving to the next set of questions. So this one is for Heather. You published your first novel, Earth Sucks, at the remarkable age of 19 in 2022, and the sequel, Rebels Suck, in 2023. Now that you will have published your third in 2024, can you describe how your writing process has evolved? As a young writer, how do you manage to put your work out in 3 consecutive years?
With a lot of help.
Really, really important.
Oh, this is not something you could do by yourself. Thanks to my parents, I get to write a 9 to 5 job. At 9 o'clock I sit in my office, and at 5 I clock out, and so I get that much time in exchange for helping around, doing all the heavy lifting. That gives me, the time to produce the novels themselves, because writing the darn thing is most of the battle. So I also studied the life out of The Writer's Journey by, what is his name? Christopher Vogler. I should have put it next to me. It's right there.
Okay.
It is a thick book that that goes into depth about every single step. It dissects 3-act structure, Campbell's The Hero's Journey, and every
Classic.
reason why the classics work. Yeah, every reason why they work. And honestly, everything changed with The Writer's Journey. I'd been studying story structure and arcs, relying on my editors to help me smooth it out. And then my scholarly father, descended from the heavens, gifted me the book. I became so much more of a plotter, and it became so much easier to plot, hence sitting down, rearranging everything on my floor.
Of
Like
course.
So now I've become a writer with a 6-foot tall corkboard. It's huge.
Is it covered in what's like the thread and the conspiracy theory
Oh, yeah.
kind of
I can
Good.
recreate that meme. I can slide down it. It's funny when
Yeah.
my parents are like, "Oh no, my daughter writes," and they're like, "Oh, okay, so it's a hobby." And no, they take a picture of the corkboard, and everyone's like, "Oh, oh." So yeah, that's what I do.
That's great. I think there is this view of writing as a very, I think, kind of like solitary vocation, or even hobby. And so it's always lovely when when you're like, no, the acknowledgement section in my books is pages and pages and pages long.
The list of names.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
grateful
No,
to all
because
of them.
of course, like it's such a process. At yeah, and you will always need the help of other people of a community, I think. Thank you so much. Next question is for Christina. You self-published your first novella, Entanglements, in 2021, and self-published your second, called Angel of Death, in 2022. And now you're publishing your first novel with Renaissance. Were there any challenges to self-publishing, and how did you overcome them?
The biggest challenge to self-publishing is believing that your work is publishable. Um, when you're self-published, you're telling the world that you believe the story you're telling is worth their money. When you're traditionally published, people look at you and go, "Oh, well, it's been vetted by editors and professionals, and they think it's good, so I believe it's good." So a lot of the problems with self-publishing, or the issues, is self-marketing. A lot of people aren't really great at self-marketing, myself included. I'm still getting better at it. And the other thing about self-publishing is the more work you have, the bigger back catalog you have, the more money you're going to make, the more readers you're going to get. So yes, Angel of Death is a series. The Angel series, I'm working on Angel of Justice right now. I know that a lot of people aren't going to read the first one until the second and the third are done. But it's not that easy, as you know, to just.
Of course. You can't just.
Yeah, you can't just snap your fingers and go, "Oh, it's done." So I'm working on Angel of Justice right now. I'm almost 30,000 words in, and I want to get to 40,000 because it is a novella. And then once I publish it, then people can go back and go, "Oh, okay, well, there is the second one, so I'm going to try the first one." But yeah, it's a lot about self-promotion, and you overcome them by having a husband like I have, who literally writes out content ideas for me and is like, "I'm going to set you up a YouTube channel. I'm going to set you up this." So that's helpful.
Again.
So thanks, babe.
The writing community comes through again.
Yeah, it's like you have to have a community around you.
Of course,
you know?
yeah, definitely. And yeah, and I would assume also that, like, not only do you have the issues of marketing to strangers and believing that your work is publishable, like convincing other people that your work is publishable requires you also to get over, I think, maybe a lot of the personal kind of like imposter syndrome feelings, or like the feelings of like legitimacy that you and I can imagine that is a lot of work as well.
But the funniest thing is I had just as much imposter syndrome with this.
Oh, it never goes away?
Just like, oh,
that's
maybe
crazy.
they just felt sorry for me. You know, I think it's natural for all artists to have this sort of, why would anyone care?
Definitely,
you know?
of course, yes. Okay, Stephen, this question is for you. How do you manage the audience's expectations and desires from a fan base that has stuck with the Maverick Heart Cycle series? Sorry, after 4 novels, have you ever used a fan suggestion and worked it in your novel?
It's interesting. I think I don't necessarily know much about what fans expect or what they're looking for.
That sounds nice.
Writing and publishing, it can be a very solitary thing. You work on something for however long by yourself. You know, maybe you have beta readers, maybe not. Maybe you get feedback from the press or from whoever's publishing it. I'm very protective of my world. You know, it's very much this is mine. I get to steer the course of where it goes. The only times I've come up with ideas from people, I have a couple of trusted writers that I know. Like my friend Nathan Burgoyne has more than once said something that sort of twigged something. Like Ghostlight Burn basically came about because he looked at me one day and said, "That character from book 2, I really liked her. I'd like to see her again." Okay, there's the germ of an idea there. But it depends a lot on where it's coming from. And one of the biggest things that I learned very early on, and I've been writing since the early 90s. So this has been around for a long time, is that even when you're submitting your work or giving it to someone for feedback, you have to be able to look at what they give you and say, yes, that's right, or no, that's wrong. That's not what I meant.
Mhm.
And even if you just take that as being, okay, what I meant isn't clear, therefore I have to clarify. But you have to be able to look at what feedback people give you and not just automatically assume it's right
Mm,
and that it's the correct thing for you to do.
for
So
sure.
there there have been times when people have given me the germ of an idea and I will go, oh yeah, okay, run with that. But it's still ultimately, I think that the the course of where this series has gone and continues to go, that's on me, and that's how I like it.
Hmm. Well, I think that's part of what's so beautiful and important, right, about sharing writing is that if you're sharing something that's so deeply, deeply personal, and then other people resonate with it, and then that's the magic, right? So if you're, I guess, yeah, if you lose that, if you start writing only for other people, it can get really can take the magic out for sure. Um, okay. Oh, I think we have a reading now from Heather. Did I miss one earlier? No, I didn't. All good. Thank you guys for bearing with me. Yes. So Heather will have an excerpt for us to read, I think, yes?
Yeah, I figured the first chapter probably
Sure.
would be the best.
That sounds great.
So, here we have You Would Have Done It Too. It starts off with a chapter heading Body Found at Local College. Blood pooled beneath him. I'm sorry, your call cannot be completed as dialed. Please check the number and try again. It seeped through the bottom of the classroom door, crawling over the gritty tiles and staining the grout. I'm sorry, your call cannot be completed as dialed. Please check the number and try again. A few doors down, a professor gathered her things and strolled down the halls that sucked the life out of people's cries. A trembling hand lifted at the sound of her clicking heels, mustered every ounce of withering strength to slap sticky fingers on the window. The professor didn't see the bloody handprint, didn't hear the rasps. Warm blood slid down cold cheeks. The hand streaked down the glass and fell limp upon the last digit of 911. The phone, smudged with red fingerprints, finally connected and began to ring. 911, do you need fire, police, or medical? The response came as a gurgle. I repeat, fire, police, or medical? Hello? The sound of the professor's heels faded. Her figure got smaller, blurrier. Is this a prank? I swear, this is a prank. Stupid kids. Click. The phone screen went dark. That is our opening. Now we have a second chapter called Second Body Found at College. They say he prowls around at night and stabs anyone not in bed. I think that's ridiculous. Felix? Oh, for Pete's sake, quit dozing off, a familiar voice shouted. Felix's head shot up. His skull collided with Liana's. Ow! All 5 foot of her, all 5'2" of her sat cross-legged atop his desk, wiggling around in pain. Her long, dark hair was up in a loose ponytail, with a white sports band to keep the flyaways back. The text on it always made Felix smile, and he thought it was great for this moment. Suck it up, buttercup, he teased, to which she stuck her tongue out and rubbed the sore spot on her forehead. You didn't get much sleep last night, did you? Concern was etched into her pretty face like chiseled stone. Was it a pillow thing or a sleepwalking thing? Sleepwalking, he mumbled to the floor. Liana wiped some drool from the corners of his mouth. He flushed and rubbed his face with the hem of his sleeve. His collection of hair ties and bracelets scratched at his skin. How did you know? Your hair smells. You didn't shower this morning. Don't sniff me. Felix had sleepwalked all of his life. He was pretty sure it was the reason he didn't have any siblings, though his parents denied it. It couldn't have been easy to take care of a toddler who could walk off the roof while snoring the moment you turned your back. His mother could write a book on the many hilarious situations they found themselves in because of his sleepwalking. Of course, nobody thought the 2 a.m. stories were funny at the time. Liana clicked her tongue sympathetically while Felix untied the rope that kept his leg attached to the desk. Another precaution that would result in Another embarrassing moment to include in the book, but he'd rather trip and fall flat on his face if his unconscious body decided to wander than everybody know the truth. Though, nowadays, yet another reason to keep himself weighed down. By the way, did you hear? They've got a new name for our infamous celebrity. Liana clapped her hands and slowly spread them to imitated one of those retro arched signs and said with her best announcer voice, "The Campus Killer!" Voila! Felix had no intention of handing his defenseless, unconscious backside to some rando whose definition of fun was playing doctor with a hammer. You really need a new hobby. But we have our own serial killer! How can that not be exciting? What part of... Where am I? I'm sorry.
No worries.
Why does everyone assume they're committed by one person? And what part about having to remember to put mace in your bag is exciting? Did you not see the bodies on the web like the rest of us? Or was Picasso's intestines a la mode just not up to your standards? First of all, there was so much wrong with that last sentence, I don't even know where to begin. Second, she waved to a cute guy who she might not have even known as he walked past the classroom windows and whipped back around to finish her sentence, smacking Felix in the face with her hair. This place has been so dead, it's nice to finally have some action. I thought, hang on. Felix pointed at a redhead passing the classroom windows. I thought he was your action. And her. And him. And she slapped his pointer out of the air. Since when did blood and gore replace the warm, living bodies on your literal to-do list? He asked. They haven't been replaced with gore. Ugh, yuck. She pretended to gag. It's the same thing over and over with them. Flowers, woo the girl, kissed by the lockers, sex. It gets repetitive. But killers, serial killers, you never know what they're going to do next. Murder. It's going to be murder next. Is she still going on about dead people? Said a pleasing voice by Felix's shoulder. It belonged to a young man whose chestnut brown hair, accentuated by thin blonde highlights, seemed to glow in the classroom's soft lighting. It looked more appealing than Felix's hair, which was dull, overgrown, and always tied back so he wouldn't accidentally eat it. Hey, Nikolai. Felix's quiet greeting was drowned out by Liana's wave of complaints. Not dead people, murderers. Honestly, I thought you knew me. By the way, did you hear that he has a name? The Campus Killer. I heard, Nikolai said, giving Felix an amused smile that brought a twinkle to his warm brown eyes. Nikolai pushed a few desks out of the way to fit his long limbs in the space provided. His height wasn't burdensome to his everyday life, and his stride no less or more awkward for being gifted a couple extra inches than everyone else. Oh no, if anything, when he finally settled in and stretched with a happy hum at the pops and cracks in all the right places, he made sitting in a plastic chair look luxurious. Leaning back with his legs crossed, supporting himself with one elbow over the back of the chair, Nikolai could look no more like a king if he wore a crown. Maybe Felix could steal one from the theater department. If we have one more body, he'll be classified as a serial killer, Liana said, perhaps a little too enthusiastically. Why can't it be a girl? Nikolai teased. Considering how both victims were men, that is a good possibility. More classmates had entered since Felix was dozing, and all of their heads bowed in hushed conversation. A group of guys near the back leaned against the wall, laughing. One pointed to some girls in the front and twisted closer to his friend, who sat on a desk, to exaggerate a mocking whisper in his ear. The group cackled. Encouraged, the two boys pretended to faint and catch the other. Felix's phone buzzed in his sweater pocket. He didn't have to look to know who it was. Parents? Nikolai leaned over to fish it out of Felix's pocket. His long-sleeved shirt twisted against his forearm, hinting at the strength that he hid under his deceptively thin body. I bet you $5 it is, Liana said. Not a bet I'm taking. I know it is. Our crazy parents are blowing up all of our phones. I'm surprised they haven't contacted the board of directors. Oh, they have, muttered Felix, snatching back the phone. The school almost shut down all extracurricular activities and clubs because of it. Students have been emailing as well. Is that why Coach was so tense? Marveled Liana. Nikolai gave her a look. Yes, your coach was tense and stopped all the late-night training hours because 2 people are dead. Why else? She shrugged. We have a volleyball tournament in 2 days. Felix snickered and checked the messages. All right, well, I'm going to stop there.
Thank you so much. That was lovely. I love all the
Heck yeah.
characters. I love all the dialogue. This is so fun. Yeah, it was so nice to hear all the voices and hear you read everybody out in the way you imagined them. Also, that was really lovely. Okay, I have more questions. This is more on the specifics of each of these books. So for Heather, since you just gave us this reading, how did you decide who the murderer would be? Did you know from the beginning, and did you build the story around it?
Originally, I'd built the story around the murderer's reveal, but during the editing process, we realized their identity wouldn't send the message that we wanted. So I won't give away who, because I've kept the red herrings, but that means I got to solve the murders myself, like the readers. That was pretty fun. I had to look at the crimes, the evidence, the personal connections, figure out who could be the most natural killer while keeping my love for twists. It was like watching like one of my favorite shows, like Criminal Minds, and then trying to figure it out. Like I looked crazy, but it was a lot of fun.
Yes, that sounds like a really fun process, and I'm sure it helps you figure out exactly how the reader would have to piece it together too, which is great.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. And my next question is for Christina. In your opinion, what makes a good sci-fi story, and what was your inspiration when writing this novel?
Um, so I write
Easy.
space opera. Yeah. So, well, it's more space opera than sci-fi, but
Right.
in both, not only is world building important, but the most important element in any story is the relationship between the characters. I believe with compelling characters who you root for and well-designed villains who you don't, you can capture a reader. So I really enjoy building those relationships. I was inspired by shows like The 100, the idea of the whole apocalypse and the, having to fight for the survival, and books like Star Wars that I've been reading for a really long time, both the canon and the legend, and also
Nice.
Renaissance's own Kat Gordon has created this incredible universe, starting with Life in the Cosm and the Stealth Lovers. And I happen to be in a reading group with her, so I know a couple other things that are coming up. And I love the way she woven in humor and romance along with this sci-fi story. So yeah, what was my inspiration? The line, "There are only 50 Earthlings alive in the galaxy, and I hate every one of them." It just came to me. And then I was like, it was my pandemic book too. I wrote this during the pandemic. And I think a lot of writers got into a very apocalyptic sort of mind frame. And my idea was, what would happen if there was no one else left in the galaxy? Like, what would happen if you just have these people? And I sort of built from there. And the idea that you hate these people, like you've been taught to hate these people, you don't trust these people, but you're like one person and they're more, and you somehow have to assimilate yourself into their good graces so that you can survive. So that was my inspiration for it, was this whole idea of, if you're a machine in a cog and the machine breaks, what do you become?
Where does that leave you?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really cool. I love that as a theme. Cool. Thank you so much. Next question is for Stephen. As this is the fourth novel in the series, can you tell us what it is about the universe that compels you to keep coming back?
I love these characters so much. And I have so much fun with them. They're It's been fun watching them grow, because the first book had, two characters in the ship, and then there was a character introduced in the second book, and I was like, hey, he's cool, let's keep him. So that led into the third book, and then there were some new characters come in and new characters go out, and that sort of evolution of, hey, people's lives go beyond one story. That you so many times you read a novel and you're like, well, okay, well, yeah, that story's done, but these people existed before that and they exist after that. So that it's been fun for me to sort of go, okay, what happens next? What is the next thing that they go there? I mean, there's a certain kind of fun unreality to these same people constantly being in these life-threatening situations.
Mhm.
I always think back to Die Hard 2, where the wife looks at him and goes, "Why does it keep happening to us?" And that sort of that that trope of fiction and series fiction where people keep getting into these incredibly illogical situations, but you just sort of go, "Okay, I'm with it. I'm down. Let's go." And it's fun being able to see the characters more. And in each book, you sort of get to, hey, I haven't done this. These two people haven't interacted in this particular way. What happens if they have to do something alone? What happens if we take this character and put them over there? What happens if we shake up the dynamic a little bit? And that's always fun to be able to look at it and go, okay, what do we do differently now? How do we shuffle these elements into a different type of story so that the characters are still who they are, but the circumstances maybe make them react a different way, or maybe we see different sides or something like that that the story demands other things of them. So it's kind of I get to see more of them and I get to spend more time with them and I get to learn about them as I write them because
Mhm.
as you're writing the story, you're like, oh, yeah, I
Sometimes they
didn't,
surprise
I
you.
didn't realize that
Yeah.
before, but okay, that works. So it's just they keep pleasing me whenever I sit down to write a story about them, and I figure,
Why
you know,
not?
and from a purely writing standpoint, a big chunk of the heavy lifting is done for you because you built the universe already.
Yeah.
You built the universe 5 books ago, so a lot of the basic structure of the world is done. I mean, you can go diving into different corners and make other things happen and create new worlds where the rules are different, but a lot of things are are pre-done for you, which is a nice sort of structure to work from and to build on to tell a new story, I find.
Totally. Definitely. And I think it makes kind of the decisions you make also that much more kind of effective when you have so much history behind all these characters. You have so many things to bank or to cash in terms of
Yeah.
like narrative payoffs and changes, which is really, really cool. Makes a lot of sense. Okay, more questions. This section is called the fun part. So hope you guys are excited for fun. For all authors, if your book could have a crossover episode with another universe, literary or pop culture, what universe would you choose and why? We can start with Heather and then go Christina, Stephen, or whoever wants to answer first, go right ahead.
Uh, well, I feel like if I have a crossover, it's got to be a happy crossover, or they might put me in a slasher film. My characters are probably mad enough at me. Maybe it could be My Little Pony. Nope, that'd be a nightmare. Something very cute, non-murderous. There's an anime called Skate that's about gay skating. It's very wholesome. I think the main two could have a little bit of a break learning how to skate and not face plant, while their friend Liana can maybe go to another anime called Haikyuu about volleyball and show all of those boys what's what. Something happy.
Right. So you would have like a spin-off to take a break from all the murder solving, is what you're saying.
They're
Yeah,
stressed enough.
that makes sense. Yeah, that's fair. That's very fair. Christine or Steven, if you have any ideas.
I think with eventually where I want my series to go is definitely the 100. Pre-season 5. Pre-season 5. My character is getting to Earth. It would be interesting to see if the Earthlings join the Grounders, if Shanae, my Martian, was accepted. And what would happen? Would they join together in a good way or would they fight? So I think that would be really, really fascinating, especially with my Earthlings, because they are very rebellious and they don't like rules, and they you know, they like their own thing. So yeah, I think it would be a lot of fun to see them with the 100.
That's so cool. I have not seen the 100. I know so little about it, but you talking about it is making me want to watch it.
It's
It's
so
so good.
So good.
Good to know. Good to know.
Octavia's my girl.
Yes.
Wonderful. Stephen, what about you? Do you have any crossovers that you would do?
Well, I haven't given it a ton of thought. My friend Nathan, and he's written an urban paranormal series set in modern Ottawa, which is basically a family of three men who are, there's like a wizard, a demon, and a vampire. And we sort of at one point thought, oh wow, can you imagine? Like they would like the mechanics of how we'd ever get them together with. I have no idea how we'd ever make it work, but we had fun sitting going, okay, well, that one would like that one, and that one would hate that one. And they would just naturally gravitate together, and and so something like that. The only other thing, because I just started watching it again with a friend of mine, is Farscape. I thought that some of my characters would have a blast with some of those. So something like that, where it'd be either completely different or characters that are similar in kind of archetypes, but something like that would be fun.
Heighten it to 11 or go in a completely different direction.
Exactly.
That makes sense. Next question. If you could collaborate on your next novel with any author, living or dead, who would you choose? This is again for everybody.
I can go. I'm ready.
Yeah, immediately, please.
The first person that came to mind for me was Becky Chambers, who I am absolutely in love with. The Wayfarers books are brilliant. Even though I was traumatized after I read the first one and then read the second one, and it wasn't the same characters that were in the first one. But the only word that I can think of to describe her writing is kind. She is absolutely the kindest writer in terms of her understanding of people and what they want and how they interact. And despite the fact that so many of the characters in that series aren't even human, they are the most human characters you could possibly ever encounter in terms of wanting things and struggling for things and struggling to understand where they are in the world and how that means. And I have no idea how you would mix that with my universe, but she's someone that I would love to sit down and go, okay, how's this gonna work? What are we gonna do? What
Teach
do you
me
got?
your ways.
Hit me,
I see
hit
that.
me with it, because I'm ready to go.
That's wonderful. It reminds me of a Mass Effect. I don't know if you guys have ever played these games.
Oh yeah.
But yeah. I mean, I think the writing in those games, the first three, it does a really good job of, again, making all these alien characters seeming like the most understandable and far more, sometimes it's a lot easier to feel like connected or compassionate or empathic towards them than the human characters in the series. What about Heather or Christina? Do you have any?
I will sing Kelly Armstrong's praises until the day I die, and even when I'm a ghost. I've grown up with her novels, all the way from like werewolves and shifters to thrillers to mysteries. I hail, I bow. I would become an honor. She's so sassy and funny, but also like you mentioned, kind. You sympathize for everyone. She's just goddess.
Do you feel like her writing would be, how would you fit her style into kind of your
I sort
writing,
of wound up, because I grew up so enthralled with all of her novels, I consumed so much. My style is actually very similar to hers.
Oh, there you go.
So Thankfully, I would say that we would mesh quite well.
Very humble of
not
you
to-
to know. Yeah. Christina, what about you?
I don't play well with others. So I can't even write when my husband's in the house. Like I have to be completely alone when I'm writing, and I'm very insular. But if there was ever anyone I want to collaborate with, it would be Virginia Woolf, because she's my inspiration. I love the way she writes characters. I love the way she interacts with her characters. Orlando was one of my favorite books, and in the introduction, she said she just wanted to kick up her heels and have fun. And I mean, it would, if I had to, it would only be with someone like her, because I think she doesn't play well with others either. So
I was about to say, I think you would.
Mess.
You have that in common. I think
Yeah.
the conflict that you two would have would make some really, really cool literature, honestly. It'd be forged in flame.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you all so much. One last question from this section. If you could choose any character to be stranded on an island with, who would you choose and why? And would you make it off the island alive? Or would they?
I have this answer right away.
Christina, go.
I choose Millie. Millie, because she's trained as a medic for the rebels, and we would definitely get off the island alive, because her husband Emery would move heaven and earth to find her. Like he would kill a swath of people to get to that island to get her off, and I would be coming with her, because that's who she is. She would never leave anyone behind. So yeah, definitely Millie.
Got John Wick levels of commitment
Yes.
on the husband's part. That's great.
But we all aspire.
Yeah, exactly.
Give me that.
Heather or Steven, how about you?
Well, I would choose Liana. As you heard, she's practical, she's brave, she's strong from intensive volleyball training, which has helped her survive in the book, and she's quick as a whip. She's the one who is piecing together a lot of information and looking at these two lovebirds going, get it together. So if I need somebody who uses brains and bronze, I feel like I have a shot at surviving with her.
That's perfect. I love that. Steven, what about you?
Oh wow, that's tough. It's like Lexa Blue would be great at shooting things.
Mhm.
If I needed anything shot, then she would be the person. If there was tech, then Keen would be the person. Ember would probably be the smartest one, because he used to be like a high-tech cat burglar type con man. So he'd probably be the one that would be able to think on his feet and adjust the most quickly to a crazy situation. So ideally I'd want all three of them just to cover all the bases, but
Mhm.
but probably the one who never got caught would be the one that would be the best one to have at your back in a situation like that.
This is
And
yeah.
And that would be I think we would get off the island if I had his help.
Right. And this is interesting because I think you could have gone for the cop-out answer and say that you chose the ship, which is a character in your book, and then just flown off the island. It's immediately what I thought of. But I like that you played honestly and fairly. Someone you have to build a relationship to. Okay, wonderful. Thank you all so much. Next, we have a reading from Christina, which I'm sure she has prepared and can begin at any moment.
Okay. I'm reading the prologue.
Oh, perfect.
Prologue. The first entry after it happened. Recording started. Only 50 Earthlings remain in the galaxy, and I hate every one of them. This all began on an ordinary day in my rather ordinary life. I felt happy with the ordinary. I was top of my class and on my way to being the chief engineer of the tin can I'm currently floating in. I looked forward to the next 10 years of my life, the next 40 years of my life. Now I have no clue what'll happen next, where we'll end up, and if I'll survive. As we say in the engineering corps, where I should have been apprenticing for the next 10 years, although that's out the window, along with the engineer that hit the button and was blown into oblivion, I am well and truly spaced. I'm dictating this entry to my AI. I call them I because we aren't supposed to name our artificial intelligence units. So I guess there's a bit of rebel wrapped into my engineering genius. Well, I do have pretty sharp coding and hacking skills. By the time I was 12, I had reprogrammed I to be more than a helper using a program I found on an old system I'd been helping to reboot and reconfigured it with my mods. Some of our systems are over 2,000 years old. And while we have advanced greatly, much of the equipment keeping our little bubble of life alive had also been over 2,000 years old, which is also how old our colony was. I'll never see it again. The golden lights glinting off at the top of the dome when the sun went down, the red clouds swirling over top during sandstorms, staring at the stars, the twinkling lights of the cryo ships, most of them still being worked on to fix what the Earthlings broke. Oh, dreaming of one day going to work up there, and oh, if I hadn't been on one of those ships, this one in particular, I'd be dead too. Recording paused by I. You are short of breath and I am worried about your health. I'm okay, I. Thanks for noticing. I'll drink some liquid in order to refresh and try to gain control of my emotions. Very well, carry on. Recording resumed. Where was I? Oh, yes. I designed I to be more empathetic, not to use as a mere servant, but to also be, and this was terribly sentimental of me, a friend. We weren't encouraged to form bonds on Mars. That part of humanity was seen as wasteful by our creators. Science and technology were all that mattered. And whenever Martians tried to be more Earthling-like, they would mostly disappear. Often these Martians left to live with Earthlings contained in a separate part of the colony. Earthlings considered themselves a race all their own, but we are all human, although Martians are more important, and we know they couldn't have survived without us. These people are all that remain of planet Earth. Actually, to be quite honest, these Earthlings are descendants of the ones who had lived within a moon colony about 1,000 years ago, when the Earth did what any planet ruled by greed does. It exploded. No one knows what happened, but it became uninhabitable, and all contact stopped. The moon colony had relied on Earth for all of their supplies too. They'd had 30 days and then starvation would set in. Enter Mars, the savior of humanity. We're not a planet that runs off religion and capitalism. We all have jobs. And we're designed to do those jobs from birth. Well, not actually from birth. We have schooling from age 2 to 11, and then 17 hours a day learning our predestined field. Then at age 12, we move into our appropriate faction housing and continue with our education until age 18, when we're presented with our lifetime assignments and apprenticeships. We can move up and around within our assigned jobs, but we can't go willy-nilly into just any other profession other than the one assigned at birth. I'd been assigned to engineering. I'm also very first in physics, which was a side study I undertook after I hacked into one of the old systems and found some files of a physicist who was trying to find a way back to Earth. I still haven't been through the entire file. I've been saving it for my 10-year assignment on board this tin can. That's a euphemism Martians use to describe the inert but still operational ships that float above us in the atmosphere. My assignment started yesterday, the same day my entire world quite literally blew up. Thanks be to science, I was already here with me. Of course. Sorry. Can't get to move over. There we are. Sorry. I never did get to know my mentor, Heron, well, but I still hear him screaming for mercy at the violent Earthlings who have commandeered my workspace. They came on board with me, but I never noticed them. I'm guessing they were in the cabin with the AI pilot of the shuttle. We're typically not encouraged to talk to any Earth workers lest our intellect be compromised by their lack of intelligence and belief in some sort of sky god. I prefer to keep to myself anyway. They mostly just walk around looking somewhat disorganized and have various tones of skin and nationalities. I think that's what they call it. We Martians were created in a lab without any messy romantic silliness. As I said, we were designed for our jobs to keep the colony running, and everyone had a purpose. We never overpopulated our colony with lust. Earthlings were everything wrong with this solar system, according to our board members, all of whom are dead now. No more board, no more colony. It just keeps hitting me over and over that everything's no more. And at the same time, I haven't felt any real emotion about it. I'm more worried about staying alive than wallowing in the realization I will never see my home again. Recording stopped. What are we going to do? I have weapons. We can eliminate the intruders. As satisfying as that is, they and us being the only humans left alive, this might not be such a great solution. Agreed. You could possibly side with them, convince them you can help. You're suggesting I fix the ship and help them open the doors to the storage area? I didn't respond as they felt they had another status must take priority. Your vitals tell me you are ready for nourishment. Before the Martian could argue the point, she jolted. Shit, I hear them coming. Power down, I.
Thank you so much. That was so fun. Yeah, I like how quickly you established the relationship also between these two characters. It makes me really excited to read this book. I want to see what has it's not really explained, right? I didn't miss it. Why the colony blew up. It's just blown up and we have to find out, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Just making sure. Because
She's up on a ship. She has no clue.
she has no idea, and I don't either. Cool. Wonderful. Thank you again. We have some more questions now. So these are questions all for everybody, and they're for the first question is, sorry, in 3 words, what can readers expect from your novels? Christina, you may go first since you just read, or
Okay.
if anybody is.
I don't do 3 words well. Adventure, expletives, and found family.
Well, I think found family is a compound in my brain.
Okay,
so,
good.
So I think it counts.
I like expletives.
Oh, there's expletives. Yeah.
I like that.
Perfect. Heather, Stephen, do you have 3 words?
I have.
Including
I also.
compound words.
Yeah, I also suck at just choosing 3 words. So I got 3 themes: gay panic, moral gray, like morally gray, and sass.
Perfect. I love those. You guys are really selling me on your books.
So I think we're doing well.
Yeah. Stephen, what about you?
Oh wow. Snark. Multiverse. Grand Theft.
Perfect. I really like our definition of 3 words in the I think,
Words.
yeah. What are they?
Words.
Who can we even rely on them?
We always write too many.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, wonderful. Next question. Can you give us any details about something you may be working on now, whether it's a continuation of the novel at hand or some other project entirely? Anybody can go first, if you are ready.
I am working on the next, possibly last book in the series. I haven't firmly decided yet. It depends on whether I have another idea after this. But it's called Into Thieves' Rift. It's the next one, and this was an idea of how do I really mess up the status quo, and took one of the characters off the board, and the story is about dealing with that. I also last year, I turned 60 last year, and in the months between like New Year and my birthday, I sat down and wrote a collection of essays, which was just about life and the world and my past and my life and various things that relate to that. So that's Renaissance has that right now, and we're sort of going to be working on that, putting that out at some point in the future. So the essay collection and yet another novel in the series.
Wonderful, keeping it varied. That sounds great. Heather, Christina.
I'm currently working on. Well, I'm tidying up a standalone to queries for agents. It's romantic suspense. Oh, I can speak English today. Suspense for either crossover between new adult and young adult readers called The Liar's Hitman. It's where the price of redemption is steep when survival demands embracing the monster within. But for a hitman and a witness whose lives are intertwined with death, salvation doesn't have to be so lonely. Essentially, it asks, what if your cute roommate was a ruthless killer? It explores, limits of loyalty, price of redemption, forbidden romance, and then you open up your door and you're like, why are you covered in blood? Get in the shower. What evidence am I destroying? Stop. Sometimes you have fun with it.
I love the premise for the book that you are publishing and the one that you are writing could, I think, both be what if ... was a ruthless killer.
Yeah.
Which is great.
I seem to have a
Uh,
theme.
Yeah, no, exactly. Christina, what about you?
I'm working on the sequel to Space, but I can't talk about it because spoilers.
Of
But I have
course.
2 other finished properties I want to query. One is called Slut. It's a contemporary novel about a biracial autistic woman who tries to conform to neurotypical relationship standards of her
Oof.
friend group, and she ends up in an abusive relationship that her hyper empathy traps her in. And The Five, which is also contemporary, it is a pandemic novel. It's set during the early days of the pandemic when a 24-year-old who's weeks away from her wedding to her high school sweetheart, who is a doctor in residency, loses her fiance and has to figure out what her new life looks like without him as she starts to see cracks in the life she thought she wanted.
Well, both of those sound so cool. So different also than what you're writing now, which is really dope.
Yeah, so C.L.
Yeah.
Carey is the name that I write my science fiction or my space opera stuff under. And Christina Robbins is what I write my contemporary stuff under, because I think you should be able to write whatever you feel like, and I don't really like sticking to one genre. Yeah.
Totally. Variety is the spice of life, so they say.
It tries to be.
Yeah. Okay. Last question of this section. Once the book is published, how will you celebrate?
Wine, cake, and laying on the floor screaming in delight.
That's perfect.
Specifically
Adequate.
at the ceiling.
Not into the floor. Important to
not
put
into
the
the floor,
scream
not
up.
lying. Yeah,
No,
screaming at the
yeah,
ceiling.
of course. Yeah. Definitely.
Maybe just go out for some really good either Indian food or sushi, like a really nice sushi restaurant, and then just get back to working on my writing.
You gotta keep up the grind, as they say. Stephen, what about you?
Yeah, I'm thinking probably chocolate or food or a good meal. I tend to be another one that's sort of like, okay, next. What do I got to do now? I got to keep
work,
going.
no play.
Yeah.
It's sort of like I want to say a moment of silence, but that's not what it is. There's sort of a quiet.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, okay, we did it. It's there. It's out. It's out in the world now for people to experience however they experience it. So there's sort of a pause. So you just sort of take a breath and go, okay, I did it again.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
I'm
The moment of quiet and the scream to the ceiling are, I think, actually on the same spectrum of celebration. They're just the opposite ends.
Yeah.
But they
But we
fulfill the
both
same.
get that feeling, of just like,
Yeah.
oh, it's done. One is
Yeah.
very relaxed. Oh, it's done. The other one is, oh my gosh.
Exactly. On that note, we have a reading from Stephen. Who I'm sure can start and has chosen something for this moment, and I will let you do that.
Thank you. This is the very first. This is how the book opens, where we see our characters again, or for the first time. I would rather rub my face on an unshielded reactor core, Lexa Blue said, or go skinny dipping in hard vacuum, Ember added. Keen scowled at them both. Oh, haha. Very funny. I get it. I'm sorry I asked. Oh, no, wait, Lexa Blue said. I'd rather eat 3 helpings of that really disgusting congealed thing Pax tries to get us to eat on that market stall on Bellevue. Oh, yeah, the thing with the eyes and the things and that smell like rotten vegetables baked in mold and then burned and then soaked in. All right, I'll go by myself. I just thought it might make a nice break. Skolas happens to be very nice this time of year. If you call being surrounded by a bunch of bookheads with no understanding of the real world all in the same place really nice, then yeah, I guess so. Yeah, didn't they make that whole planet one big campus just to keep them out of our hair? Kane walked away from them both. Fine, lesson learned. See, you learned something new and you didn't even have to leave the ship. You're both awful, Rick said. The ship's voice made his disdain perfectly clear. He's been waiting for this conference for months. Oh, relax, junk pile. It's all in fun. He knows that. She leaned back from the quizzling board and stretched, cat-like, then ran a hand through the jagged crop of her blue-black hair. The light from the holographic game pieces glinted off this ebony sensor gem where her right eye had once been, stark against the warm sandy tone of her skin. The vertical scar was stark and white. I don't know. He seemed upset. Leave him be, Squib. I've known him a lot longer than you have. He'll be fine. Besides, we have a game to finish. She leaned forward over the tiers of the board again, already contemplating her next move. And I'm winning. You owe me 3 pressure suit inspections and 2 of my dinner making shifts. Are you sure that's winning? You've tasted my cooking. I'll take it if it means I beat your ass. They played 4 more times, and Ember won back 2 of his shipboard chores, which he realized was the best he was likely to get. It was only then that he noticed that Keen hadn't returned to the lounge. Okay, I'm out. Come on, Squib, you could still win the rest. 1 more hand. No chance. I managed to save a little face. That's enough for me. Spoil sport. Hearing her grumble behind him, he headed aft. He found Keen in their quarters, seated on the edge of the bed. He immediately saw that Keen's eyes were open but glazed over, unseeing, a telltale sign he was using the access node embedded in his brain to connect to know-it-all. Longtime users of this still high-end tech got that weird, unseeing expression whenever they use their nodes. Ember entered the room quietly, figuring Keen was making final arrangements for his trip, or perhaps just reading some new tech journal with news about the latest advancements. The thought of the old familiar habit made him smile. Not wanting to disturb Keen for fear of aggravating any lingering tensions over their teasing, he busied himself while he waited for Keen to finish whatever he was occupied with. He emptied the laundry cabinet, folding and putting each item away with precise care. Hey, it was my turn to do that. I'm not keeping. He hung the last ship suit in the closet and came to sit beside Keen. All set? Yep, room is booked, and I've got a seat on one of the shuttles running attendees from hub to the conference. But I thought you weren't due on hub. I thought we weren't due on hub until 2 days before the conference. It's at least a week and a half travel time from hub to Skulls. Yeah, if I was going via interspace. Skulls has a gate now. Ah, that makes sense. I had no idea Sindel and her team were that far along in the implementation. Ember smiled at the memory of the whole gatecrasher incident, something he could do now that time had allowed him to heal, now that he'd found Malika again, his old partner in crime, literal crime, as they'd been running drifts unwheeled when they'd gotten caught up in the whole mess. They'd been dragged along with the Maverick Heart crew to defend the first stable wormhole generating station, the prototype for those that were springing up around more and more worlds. And it had fractured their friendship until they finally found each other again. He looked at Keen and saw what? Longing? There's something there in the expression, something only he might have noticed. I'm sorry we pushed your buttons back there. No, I'm sorry. Keen leaned into Ember's shoulder and brought his hand up to touch his sleek, silvery hair. The strands slipped through his fingers like soft metallic threads, and the rich amber tone of Ember's skin seemed fair next to his. It's not like we don't joke around like that all the time, anyway. So what's different? Keen was silent a moment, and Ember watched him search for the words he wanted to say. Ember knew that look as Keen sorted his thoughts, ordering them as neatly and precisely as the gizmos or repairs he always had his hands in. I love being here. I love being here with you and Lexablue and Brick. It's been a hell of a good life, despite the constant life-threatening danger. Yes, in spite of all that. This has been my home for a long time, and you're my family. But we don't speak your language. Yes, this conference is an opportunity to just let that tech junkie part of me run free, dig into it and share with people who get it and can keep up with me and push me to think new things. Then why did you ask us to come along? I don't know. I guess I'm just used to thinking of us as a unit. Can't remember the last time I did something on my own. It was probably the last time your life wasn't in danger. It does seem to be a bit of a pattern for us, doesn't it? It does, but at least it keeps us from getting bored. That, my little thief, is something we will never be. Though I sometimes wonder what it would be like if we were. Well, considering this conference you're going to, you get to be as boring as you want, Ember said, ducking out of the way just as Keen tried to shove him off the edge of the bed.
Thank you so much. So fun. all of you have such great characters right off the bat. It's all I know that I've said it every time, but it remains true every time. I promise that it's all I'm thinking about, and visibly, or what's the word? Very literally imagining the scenes and the conversations and the expressions going through them. Thank you. Next section, we have questions from author to author. So these are questions that each of you have prepared, right? And that you will be asking each other. We'll start with Heather. Yeah, I'll let you put on the hosting cap for a second.
Well, that's going to be a problem because I honestly don't remember what I asked.
That is.
I'm sure it was quite clever. And
That
highly
is not a
entertaining.
problem because I can pretend to be you and ask them these
Perfect.
questions
I tell you
on
what,
your
you
behalf.
say the thing, I will move my mouth and we'll just
That's
puppeteer.
perfect.
All right, ready?
That's perfect. Yeah. Okay. 3, 2, 1. If you were transported to your book, would you join the dark side or the light side? This is a question for both Christina and Stephen. Both of you. Christina, please.
If I was transported to my book, I would be really pissed off. I don't think my book has a dark and light side. The people you think you can trust, you can't, and the people you think you can't trust, you might be able to, and it really sucks for all Earthlings. So yeah, it would be terrible. I'd just be really angry.
Perfect. What about you, Stephen?
I would definitely want to be part of the crew. I would probably go down in a hail of bullets on the first adventure. I don't know if I have any.
Immediate.
I don't know if I have any actual marketable skills that would be useful in any of these situations.
We'll go down together.
Yeah, but I would definitely want to be, on the ship hanging out with these people, just for a little while until I died. but yeah, I think I would definitely want to be with the good guys on this one.
That's good. I mean, every good adventuring party needs a bard, So
Yeah.
you can fill that role very well.
Sitting in the background, taking notes.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if the power of your words can save you from lasers, but that's a problem that thankfully you don't have to subject yourself to. Next question is, who is your favorite character and why? This is for either of you. Sorry, I forgot to say that. I got too carried away in my role.
I probably, to a certain extent, probably Lexa Blue, because she's the one that, doesn't think, and she dives right in, and she's always in trouble, and she's off drinking strange forms of alcohol without finding out what they are first, and she's got lovers in all the different ports, and she's just the one that just sort of was like full steam ahead, doesn't sort of stop to go, well, is this a good idea? Should I really be, not that I have sometimes can be overly cautious in my own life. So sort of, I'd want to be a little more like someone who's just like, what the hell? Let's do it. See what happens.
I love that.
My favorite character ever to write has been Emery. Emery is the son of the rebel leader. He's married to Millie, who he rescued from a really bad situation. Emery comes across as just a thug, like guns, muscles, warrior, but underneath it all, he's got a lot of deepness. His love for Millie is endless. And all he cares about is saving his people and taking care of them. So yeah, Emery is like definitely one of my favorite characters I've ever written.
A hunk with a heart of gold.
Exactly.
He is, and he's
stole
really
the
hot
words
too.
right out of my mouth, like you've been doing. Yeah, I was just gonna say the exact same thing. Love a tough guy with a heart of gold. Wonderful. Okay, this one is for Stephen. How do you keep getting inspiration for the series?
I'm I'm really a magpie. I pick up bits and ideas and things from all over the place. So there the I had written the first two, like the early drafts, several years ago. And when it came to the third, it was literally a case of, hey, I had a standalone novel that in a completely different universe. And a couple times I'd hear from fans who'd be like, did you write some more of that? And I could never think of an idea. And I thought, wait a minute, this is my world. I don't have rules. I make them. So it's like multiverse. Okay, off we go. So I melded them together, and and that led to a bunch of other things, and sort of spurred on the idea. The the Infinite Heist came from a few things. One was I had watched something that some kind of mystery, or it was a an episode of a TV show that had basically a locked room mystery. Someone who was murdered in an impossible situation where no one could have done it. So I thought, ooh, that'd be neat. How would you do that in a high tech kind of situation? So I had a locked room mystery was where it was kind of the jumping off point. And then there was an idea of two characters hadn't really interacted on their own without the third. So it's like, hey, what are they going to be like without this other person between them to be the mediating force? And then the last thing was I learned about rhodium, which is the most valuable commodity in on the planet. It's basically something like $5,000 an ounce because it's so rare.
Expensive.
That I thought, hey, what if we have an equivalent of that? And then it was, wait a minute, I've got multiverses, and so we've got this incredibly valuable thing, and my friend Nathan was basically we were throwing around ideas, and it came down to, what if you could steal the same incredibly valuable thing over and over again? So it's these sort of little things that will spark, that can
Just
go
kind of big ideas.
Yeah. I remember a good friend of mine who writes plays said to me once, many years ago, and it was sort of reassuring, that even if you are not sitting down actually writing or typing or composing or planning, the little people in the office in the back of your head are still going. They're still working, they're still thinking, they're still filing things away, and a lot of that can be unconscious. You just you absorb all of this information and things from the world around you, and then all of a sudden you go, oh, that's it. That's the idea. That's the plot twist. That's the thing. That's the linchpin that the story comes in. So it's just really a question of things just come, and you go, oh, that'd be cool. I have these people. What happens to them if we do this? And so there's always sort of something coming. And every time, I mean, after every book, it's like, I'm never going to come up with another idea. I'm never going to have another idea. I'm never going to have another idea. And then I'll say, like, oh, I had another idea. Okay. And off you go again.
Awesome.
Thank God that they keep coming. Perfect. So the next question is for Christina. And it is, what got you into space in the first place?
A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Seriously, Star Wars, 4 years old, it imprinted on me. I was introduced to Star Trek as well too, like the original. And then TNG was one of my favorites. Anything to do with space. I love Mass Effect. I've even tried playing Halo, even though I find it incredibly boring in some places. I like relationships. So the thing about Star Wars is it's not just about pew pew. It's about what's in between that and what makes it. I wanted to know if I could create a world like that. I love being in those worlds. I love watching those worlds. So I just wanted to see if I could actually create something. And I love the idea of creating societies and tenets, religions, ideas, and keeping real world, our world stuff in it, like slavery and capitalism and all these different things that affect our world, environments and things like that. So what got me into space was the idea that I could open my imagination, do whatever I wanted, but keep it grounded in reality as well too.
Mhm. Definitely, yeah. Like again, this you start from the basic building block of any story, which is a character so small, and then you throw them into the big infinite. That's great. I love that. Next, we have questions from Carey to the
All
other.
right.
Do you have them, or do you
I
need
do.
me to?
I
Okay,
actually
perfect.
have my questions.
Better prepared than me.
I really like pretending to be you guys,
I realized,
though, but it's
no,
fun.
I'll be honest, Heather. I realized like halfway through, I'm like, oh crap. What if I have to ask my questions myself? So I actually brought them up on another phone and went, oh, okay, I have them now. So, all right,
well,
my first question is for Heather. I saw that in your bio, you make a joke about the FBI being interested in your searches. What's the weirdest thing you've ever searched?
that is a fabulous question, by the way. Let's just say that if you ever need a chemical that eats through rocks and will not stop eating through, I'm the gal. And also, if you perhaps chance were curious about what said chemical would do if a droplet touches your skin, I can tell you. But I also, at one point, needed to know how much air it would take to, if injected into a person, how much air it would take to kill them. And what would happen internally, which organs would decide to look like what, and I literally mean look like. So that was something that I got to research, and I discovered all about a poor fellow whose IV got hooked up to a wall oxygen outlet that
Oof.
got turned on full.
Oh
He
no,
blew up.
that's not
So
good.
yes, that's the sort of stuff that I think the FBI would be quite their interest might be piqued.
I totally get that. My book, Angel or Death, is a serial killer book. And
There we go.
I also had to research a few things.
That were more than questionable kind of stuff.
Stephen, how do you keep the same cast of characters throughout a series and keep it fresh and exciting?
Well, I think it goes back to somewhat to what you were saying about it being about character. My books tend to be very plot driven in terms of mechanics of moving people around and set pieces and action scenes and stuff like that. But I think it's incredibly important, and I always try to make sure that these people respond, that the events change them and make them different. So they're not the same as at the end of the book as they were at the beginning, and that they have emotional responses to things that occur. And so when you start another book, you're looking back at, okay, well, not where were they when they started? Where were they when I left? What was going on? Where were they at? And it's a very much a conscious thing, like I said, of each book has been a very much a different thought process as to why I was doing it. The first one was introduce the characters. And then I wrote the second one because I couldn't sell the first one. And so I tried to take a different approach and bring in a new character. And then the third one was the crossover. And then the fourth one was to bring back the character from the. So there was always an element of what am I going to do differently? What ground have I trodden before that I don't want to go over again? How do I intentionally make this something that isn't the same? And it's like changing up the situations, changing up the characters, changing up the threat, changing up the where they are. Like this. Alexa Blue gets into a relationship with a woman in book 3, and then it's sort of expanding in book 4. But now with this one, they're both so complicated that now they're kind of on and off again, and their friends are all looking at them, oh God, these two, so that you trying to sort of keep people moving because we aren't the same.
Mhm.
And especially when big momentous things happen, we don't come out of it the same, which makes how they respond to another big situation different than maybe they had been before. So,
Heather, what made you choose this topic and setting for your book?
I love fan spin-offs of beloved books and characters like written and shared online. A lot of them take characters from historical settings and then just throw them into the modern world and say, what will happen? What if? And also at the time, I was researching colleges to attend and delighting in my sister's wild college stories about banning friends from drinking cough syrup instead of booze and such. So I took, yeah, that happened.
The kids are not all right.
They would go, are you kidding? What college student is okay? So it was that kind of stuff where I was just immersed in all of that at the time, and that heavily influenced me.
Stephen, what do you love the most about world building?
oh, all of it. I think it's like I was saying earlier, that finding the thing and then that half turn sideways so that you find something that's a little new about it. I like exploring, like so often you see something or read a book and things are ubiquitous, whereas when you like if you look at the world around us, there are inequities and not everybody has access to the same thing. So a lot of times I've tried to make that, the thing that I mentioned in the thing about the Node, which is basically like an implanted smartphone, is that not everybody has it. There's that, and there's a slightly less advanced version of that technology. And then having introduced the fact that they've developed this stable wormhole technology, I haven't jumped straight to everybody has stable jump gates. The jump gates are only in certain places, and so you can only get to certain spots, and you can only use them in certain ways, and that you have this other form of faster than light drive and then how does that affect how you do things? Because not everything is automatically available to everyone, which I think is something that sometimes can get forgotten in world building, is that there are those sort of uneven applications and distributions of the cool tech, that not everybody has access to a transporter, not everybody has access to a communicator, not everyone has access to that. So how does that change things? It's like finding those nuances in it are what I really, really like to do, is just sort of go, okay, I've had this idea. Now what else can I do with it? How do I polish it just a little bit more?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you all so much. Christina, nice job posting.
Thank you.
You did great. And okay, next are questions from Stephen. Stephen, do you want me to read these out, or do you have them in front of you and you would like to read?
I have them here.
Wonderful.
Okay, Heather, I may have misunderstood and thought you were more of a mystery writer than a serial killer writer. So I said favorite mystery writer and why.
Well, actually, mystery and thriller, it goes hand in hand, because there's this question of crime, why, who did, why, and make it stop. So it works. It works. So Kelly Armstrong, as you guys know, I worship. I've been a fan of hers since 2010. And she became a must buy. But also recently, I found Danielle Valentine, an author of How to Survive Your Murder and Two Sides to Every Murder, which is on my desk. So I'm a sucker for sass, and oh boy, do these women get to the point like a knife in the gut. So those are my current favorites.
Okay, cool. Okay, Christina, what book have you read recently that you loved and instantly wanted to recommend to everyone?
This is easy. Withered by AGA Wilmot is an amazing body horror and ghost house thriller with a non-binary MC. It's filled with sass. You would love it. And a lot of thrills and just this deep, amazing community that they've managed to build. It's just incredible, the world they've created, and I can't wait for the rest of the books because I know they're coming. Iris and the Crew Tear Through Space by Kat Gordon, who is published by Renaissance. Iris and the Crew Tear Through Space is a trip through a world of accessibility and what's possible if we stop looking at disabled people as their limitations and instead gave them the ability to treat them, have accessibility, and just live a normal life, like just live life, you know? So she's got these people on a space vessel. Some of them have sentient prosthetics, which is fascinating. Some of them have readers so that deaf people can see what other people are saying at all times. It's just amazing. Both are very gender, LGBT, and disability inclusive. They have a lot of diversity, and they deal with mental illness in a really compassionate way.
Awesome. Heather, what was the genesis of the book? Was there like a thing, like, I was talking about the little element that sparked things. Was there a thing that you can point to that made you go, okay, here's a story I want to write?
I, at the time, needed a break from my dystopian series. I had been so focused in it, I got sick of myself. So then at that point, queer characters, like the queer characters from my dystopian, had not gotten together yet. And I was just aching for some queer love. And I needed some sweet romance, like stat. So I, at that time, was getting into unreliable narrators and psychological thrillers, just where the protagonist was losing their mind, just to try and get something different. And like I said before, my life was full of mentions of college at the time, and trying to figure out where I wanted to study made me feel like I was going insane. So all of that culminated into a college thriller, a college slasher, because like I had historical characters being thrown into the modern universe, typically called college AUs, college alternate universes, made by just fans of series and stuff. So all of that storm hanging above me turned into You Would Have Done It Too. So I built everything off of Felix and Nikolai's relationship, the main lovers in my book. The heartwarming tenderness in the face of the terror that's stalking Felix, the unwavering faith when everything you know seems to be falling apart. Everything circled back to the pair's utter devotion to each other. So I got to feed that little ache of, I need queer gay love. And here's all this unreliable information and this terror, and all of it just sort of started that twister at the eye of that twister was this gay pairing that I just wanted to nurture. So I hope that made sense.
Excellent. One last one, Christina. Which fictional future would you want to transport yourself to if you could?
I really love the world of Mass Effect. I think that would be kind of cool. But Andromeda, I know people are, but I love Andromeda. I've played it so many times that I've had to take away characters to make new characters. And Dragon Age, I think that would be really fascinating too. Those would be two worlds that would be really fun to live in, video game wise. Television wise, I think Star Trek's kind of the utopia, the where I'd love to see society go. So that would be kind of cool. So yeah, those would be a couple worlds. Every other world I don't want to live in because those people go through hell, and I'm quite happy not going through hell. So yeah, those would be the two.
That's entirely fair. Future sucks.
Right?
I really liked Andromeda also. I was always ashamed that people were so quick to hate it.
I
It's a
didn't
Mass Effect
understand
game.
that. It had
Yeah.
everything.
Exactly. Okay, well, thank you all so much. Stephen, thank you for these questions. You guys are gonna put me out of a job. Sounds like, based on how good of hosts you are. Next up, okay, so we're all done with all questions. Congratulations, everyone. Next up, we have the Guess the Quote game. That's gonna end the stream. So the way this works is I will say a quote from one of these 3 upcoming books, and then people can respond or guess in the chat which book it was. I'm going to set a timer for 30 seconds about per quote to give people time to respond and think. And then at the end, of course, I will tell you which one it was. So I want to think about this first one really well. So give me a second. Okay, perfect. We have a plan, but the statistical probability of it succeeding is, well, we most likely are just extending our inevitable deaths, but I don't want to be called the negative Nancy again. So I'm setting a timer 30 seconds. People who are watching, try to guess which of these 3 books it is from Spaced or Infinite Heist, or You Would Have Done It Too. I wish I knew how to put on like Jeopardy music.
Do, 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 do,
Yeah,
do.
classic.
That is the only part of the tune that I can remember. I'm sure there's more, but it's just
I
that on
know
a
it
loop
all.
on my head.
It's a big Jeopardy household that I grew up in.
I always remember somebody back in the Star Trek Next Generation days wanting to reprogram the auto destruct sequence to play the Jeopardy theme.
I would love that.
That's wonderful.
You know what? I threw my answer in our chat as well. I was like, I want to play too.
As you should. I will ask everybody, obviously, in the stream as well. Okay. Perfect. I'll stop the timer there. So we have a guess for Infinite Heist, or another guess for Torn Between Spaced and Infinite Heist. Steven, do you have a guess?
Well, I know the answer.
You know the answer. You can see it. Oh my God. I'm so sorry.
No,
I
no,
don't
no,
know
no.
who
I
you
know.
know.
I just know the answer because it's not me.
That's true, but there's 2 other people. You
That's
could guess
true. That's true.
Come on.
But is Heather trying to fake us out? No.
I did say I like unreliable narrators.
That's true.
I could be playing you.
I don't know. I'm terrible.
All right.
I don't know.
That's okay. And Heather, you guessed in the chat. I'm guessing you're one of the. Okay, perfect. The answer is Spaced. It is.
Ah!
Perfect. Okay, I will now read another one. Sorry, that's a faux pas on my end. You don't get gay points for every woman you ignore until you accumulate enough to evolve from heterosexual to homosexual. 30 seconds of Jeopardy music. Should we need it? Oh, I see. We have 2 guesses so far in the Zoom chat. I think I can safely say that this is You Would Have Done It Too. I think it was unanimously in both the internal chats and the YouTube chat. There was no doubts.
That's amazing.
Everybody got it right. Full points,
Congrats.
everyone. Okay. Next one. You started a brawl in a bookstore. That's it. That's the quote. 30 seconds on.
Oh.
Maybe a little faster. Oh. That one was, in fact, from Stephen's book, Infinite Heist. I think that one is nice because you wouldn't expect there to be bookstores in space. I wouldn't. But that's just me. So I like that one can be said.
You missed the other half of the quote, though. It's you started a brawl in a bookstore.
Oh
one
my
time!
gosh, I did!
It happened one time!
I'm so sorry.
I don't know if that would have made any difference to anybody, but
That's a fair point. That is a really important. It does really set the tone of the quote, though. I'm so sorry about that.
that's okay.
Okay. I'm gonna do a few more, and then we are. I mean, we're a little over time, but it's fine. I'm having fun. So, I can't decide between sending you rat poison muffins or poison ivy tea for your prison moving in gift.
She disappeared.
Oh, Heather's gone.
Come back to it, Heather.
Uh-huh. Did everybody just die?
No, we're all still here. You're the one who's
we're all
missing.
here.
Oh, great.
You're
Fantastic.
the-
I hope that I froze in some very strange position. Great.
So the Dark Canvas test, you would have done it too, and it is in fact you would have done it too as well. I think people in the yes, everybody guessed that right in Zoom as well. Heather,
I'm glad. I don't know what that quote was.
it was the rat poison muffins, which your Zoom must have eaten as I read the quote for it to have died like that. Okay. Next up. Stealth is my middle name. Mayhem is your middle name, and there will be plenty of opportunities for that too.
Ooh.
$30 seconds. Maybe a little less depending.
I'm on to you. Could go either
Question
way.
master. Okay. We have a few for infinite, one for spaced, and another for infinite. It was in fact Infinite Heist. I'm sorry, Heather. You'll get it next time.
I mean, both of them are very sassy, and I'm like, all right, look, it could be either
It's
one. I'm just flubbernucked.
Stealth and mayhem are required for a lot of sassy events to occur. So I think you're correct on guessing that. Okay. We'll do one more, I think. Dun, 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 dun. We call it kissing, he said, his cheeks reddening. And you're only supposed to do it with permission from both parties. So if we were to do that, I would need permission from you, and you would need permission from me. Earthling logic was so very complicated. So, I have faith. What do you mean? Heather, I believe.
You shouldn't. I've had a horrible track record. For everybody, I just put my my answer and I said, "Watch me be wrong."
Yeah. Okay, this one was in fact spaced. The Earthling logic was a dead giveaway, but I'm glad everybody was listening.
Fuck, I got one.
Plot twist, it was from your own book, Heather. It was from You Would Have Done It Too.
Watch me be wrong. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and how wrong. Okay, I think we can wrap up the question game. But yes, it was very fun. Again, super excited to read all these books, just from these little quotes. But thank you, everyone. Thank you to everybody for tuning in.
For having
So
us.
lovely. Thank you to the authors for attending. Thank you to you guys. This was so fun to talk to you. This is my first time hosting an online event, everybody. So thank you for being here for my.
You did a fantastic job.
You know what?
Fantastic.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So these books are coming out. Infinite Heist is going to come out November 19th, 2024. Spaced is coming out November 10th, 2024. And You Would Have Done It Too is coming out September 20th, 2024. I did that inverse order for when they come out, but that's okay. So you can feel the release dates coming closer and closer to you. So why not? Yes. Keep an eye out for more Renaissance events. We'll be doing plenty, of course. Yeah. And thank you again, everyone.
Lovely to
And
meet
have a
you.
lovely
You
day.
soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Don't forget to pre-order. Sorry, yes. Thank you, Nathan. Nathan in the chat.
The entire
Going
point of this.
through. Yeah. Important. Thank you, everybody. Ciao.
Bye.
Bye. And of
Okay.
course, I don't know where any button is.
That's okay. You don't have to end. I ended.